Okay.
Okay, we're good.
We'll officially call the meeting to order. And the first item for tonight is the review of reservation system for Matheson Park.
Yeah, and I see Rick in the audience. I'm assuming Rick's prepared to join the panel. Hold on one second. The attendees are slowly coming in. Let me get Rick on here. Hey, Rick. You're muted.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, guys. And
Hey there.
ladies.
So
I was going to be on. I just don't. He's on momentarily.
yeah. Yep.
No worries. No super rush. We'll keep it to 90 minutes either way.
Yeah.
We'll just do the capital budget if he's late, and then we'll get back to him.
We'll penalize him by doing the capital budget, make him stick around.
Okay. Just give me a second. I'll try to see what's going on.
No problem. Wish I had some good announcements to make or something.
Nothing yet from my point, but I can share the document that you received, and I obviously Rick's familiar with it. If you want to run through it a little bit with us, or I can go down the list, whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm sure Joe will be on shortly. I'll keep an eye out.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, hold on one second here.
Did everybody get a chance to look at it today? Good.
Yeah, it came a little bit late, so I apologize.
Yeah.
That was on me.
But yeah, luckily it's one page, so it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. All right. Let me zoom in here a little bit if I can. Okay. You read that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, Rick, you want to go through it, or how do you want to do this?
Just to start off, the kayak racks. We had said in one of the last meetings that we didn't think it was going to be possible to have walk-in kayak traffic, and that was because the location of the handicap ramp was going to go right through the walkway, and it would have created a long walk for somebody to get down the ramp, across, and then sort of back up onto the beach. So with the change of the location of the handicap ramp, that shouldn't be a problem now. So there'll be people, you'll be able to bring kayaks in from the street and launch them off the beach. One of the other things that came up is that we thought about, and we feel strongly that we must add to the rules that no competitive sports team practices or games can be played in any area of the park, and that will just create, especially since a lot of the other areas besides the picnic area are going to be reservable locations. We just didn't think that, and frankly, there's been several issues in other parks where competitive teams, come in and they're having their softball, t-ball, whatever type of practice, and it gets to the point where they want to take over the park, and there's so much else going on in the park. We didn't think that would be good, at least for the initial trial.
Rick, can I just ask, isn't the park already for passive recreation only?
Well, there has been soccer practices and things like that down there when there was really nothing else going on. But now that it's, I mean, if you've ever coached a softball team or a baseball team in town, you know that there's no place for practices to take place other than on the field. So, people try to get creative with where they have their practices, and as long as it's, forbidden in Matheson because of everything else that's going to be going on there, we thought that was pretty important.
I mean, did you guys want to add something just like, without permission from the recreation department? So that way, if you decided that, there's I don't know what, a Tai Chi group that's 3 people that wants to go Tuesdays at 9 a.m. I mean, you could always override it anyway.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that sounds fine.
It might just make sense because then I think that's a good rule forever, not even just during the.
Yeah, and that's something that Marianne may need to add to the rules. You want to get to the reservations part of it now, or?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so.
Joe has a lot more to add to this. However, I think you went too far, Larry. Oh, no, you're right. Joe has been speaking. As a matter of fact, I know he had a conference call with the computer program. Yeah, community program people to try to set up the reservation list or the reservation procedures. What we talked about was reservations are required for all groups of 12 or more, and for anyone who wants to reserve a specific amenity like a barbecue grill or a picnic table. All reservations will be submitted online, and direct email confirmation will be sent out once the reservation is approved. Community Pass, right, is the name of the reservation platform, and that's where you'll go to make a reservation.
Rick, if I could just add one thing.
Sure.
So one of the things that we talked about a bit, and I wasn't involved in obviously in the RPAC discussions, but I know I talked with Joe a bit, and we made sure that we stopped talking about this as a group permit, because if you talk about it as a group permit, it actually confuses the conversation.
Yeah.
So that's why we were talking about reservations, because reservations can happen. You can have a barbecue grill that gets reserved for 5 people. That's not a group, but they still need to make a reservation. It's something
Correct.
That's in demand. So, and the opposite is true. You can have a large group that doesn't need a barbecue grill,
Correct.
or whatever. So, we just call them reservations in general.
Right. That's why, that's why we changed the verbiage on that.
Yeah. Janice had a question.
Yeah, just what's the proportion of grills to picnic tables? I assume there are more tables than grills.
Every grill, there'll be 2 picnic tables.
I see.
That's the way it's set up. That's the way it's set up pretty much now.
Okay,
So
so
we have large.
if somebody takes a picnic table, there's not going to be much left for the grill. So okay.
Yeah, no, but there's going to be obviously picnic tables set up without grills for the other areas that we're looking to allow reservations on. We'll get to that as we go
Okay.
forward into that. Yep. Right now, we're assuming there's going to be 15 barbecue grill areas available for reservations at the 1 month period or 30-day period. 10 of them will be reserved for village residents and 5 for non-residents. And you'll see the significance or the insignificance of that perhaps as we go on. All reservations can be made a month in advance. If 10 days before the date there are openings in either reservation area, those spots will be open to anyone. So that 10 and 5 is just a placeholder until we get to the 10-day mark where all bets are off and anybody can reserve. All reservations will be reviewed by staff prior to approval. And that sounds proprietary. However, basically, no reservation is ever clear cut. They want to bring in a truck. They want to bring in a caterer. There's all kinds of things that they're going to want to do in addition to just, walk in and take 2 tables or get 2 tables and a barbecue. So we want to make sure that, especially with the larger reservations, that the Joe staff has a chance to review it and then make recommendations, or just send an email confirming it, and then they can go online and pay for it if in fact there is a charge for that particular reservation. If additional information required, staff will work directly via email. That's what I just explained. Once they get everything ordered for approval, there'll be at least 5 other areas without barbecue grills available for reservations on the water and northern spots in the park. So there's going to be 5 other areas that are going to be reservable. And once again, they're along the water and then the northern part of the park. The north, I guess you'd say northeastern part of the park, the open part on top. That means there's 20 total locations available for reservations each day the park is open. Any questions up to that point?
Just how are you going to indicate? I mean, I'm thinking of like a restaurant where they have a little card on the table reserved, especially away from the barbecues. How are you going to?
The person who's at the gate and the ranger will both have the order of or the reservation list, if you will, and they'll know picnic area 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 15 will be all laid out, and they'll know what those are, and so that's why it's important for the person at the gate to find out if you're a reservation holder, and this way they know exactly where to send you, and it'll work in an orderly fashion. And if it's a larger group than 12, or 25, maybe we're going to give them 2 spots, which is two barbecues and 4 tables. It really depends on what's on the menu for that day.
Maybe you know this or don't, but do you know if the online community pass platform would allow for a map that shows the numbers and the locations of these things? I saw that on the counties and I thought it was a very good idea, especially people who don't know the park. I mean, I don't know the park anymore. It's like
I'm sure I don't think on the actual document that you used to reserve, probably not, but on the website, at that location where this particular these documents will be found, I'm sure we can put that. Once again, I don't want to speak for Mike DiNardo, who's working with Community Pass to work this out, but I know they've done a lot of work on it, and a lot of things come up. But I'm not so sure that didn't come up, Connie. But so I'll have to reserve.
I made a note of it.
Comments, yeah. So that's just like I mean, we don't have to go into the details of this. I mean, computer people figure this out, but it's like click here to see the map. And then you go to another spot. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's okay. That's actually a double-edged sword there, because I don't know whether we'll be able to show what's already been reserved. So if somebody says, I have 25 people, I want stations or barbecue pits 2 and 3. Well, one or both of them may have already been taken, and
they do show that. I mean that.
They do?
The can do anything and show these are reserves.
Then that's good then.
Then I would put that, I think I said the same thing earlier also, that that would be part of it, that you would know not to bother, because, you needed this and it's not there.
Right.
And you might check back later, somebody, takes their reservation out. But I think that's a very friendly kind of approach to show people as much information that makes it clearer and easier, that people are informed before they ever get there.
Well, like I said, I'll speak to Joe and Mikey about it and see what we can do as far as making it clear on the website.
Right.
Sorry, everyone, I'm here.
Okay,
Rick, what was the question?
Oh, do you want me to re-say it? I don't want to re-say the whole thing.
No, I'll review it. No, I made a note of it, Joe. We'll review it after.
You'll get it later, right?
Yeah, it's not necessary. It's something we need to look into. That's all. Not a big deal. We
Okay.
actually are. If you see the screen here, we're through the we're just through the reservation system, if you will.
I went through everything up to the reservation fee format, so you want to take it from there, Joe, by all means.
That's fine. Thank you, Rick.
Yep.
All right,
And
so
I think there's no open questions right now. I made a couple of notes, about suggestions, but there's no open questions.
The one question I had was, I see, there's 20 total locations available for reservations. Are there more than, like, how many total picnic areas are there? Are there like other picnic?
right now we're making 20 available, but there's a lot more than that in the whole park.
Okay.
Underneath the canopy where the barbecue grills are, there'll be 15, 10
Okay.
for residents, 5 for non-residents. And then for now, we're only identifying 5 additional spots along the water's edge or the north end of the park that can be reserved by groups or by anyone, and not have a grill attached to them. We're well aware we could probably fit more than that in, but we also don't want to lock everything up in the park, because we want to make sure that people who walk up to the park will have some opportunity to find places to sit or to enjoy themselves. So that can easily be expanded upon if we need it to, but it's a good starting number.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was just, because to me, it seemed like there's probably more than 20. So you can reserve 20, but then there's the walk up people as well.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Great.
15 will have grills, 5 will not.
Great.
Okay. So everyone who wants to try to make sure they have what they want will need to make a reservation. If it's a family of 5 and on, a couple weeks before they know they were going to celebrate dad's birthday or mom's birthday, and they want to have a little barbecue, just the 5 of them, they'll go online, they'll make a reservation for a picnic, for a barbecue grill, but they won't have any fee. They'll still need to fill a form out, but then they'll be guaranteed that when they get there on that day, there'll be an area assigned to them.
Yeah.
And again, that's the same thing. So if the one thing about this, which is a little strange, is because we're allowing people or groups of less than 12 to make a reservation, it is possible that all the reservations could be taken by groups of less than 12. Now, that's not likely to happen, but one of the things that the committee felt very strongly about is we wanted to make sure that, we didn't save every barbecue pit for just a group or 12 of more. We
Absolutely.
needed to make sure that the smaller family had a spot and had an opportunity. So that's why we set it up that way. Groups of 12 to 25 are the first level of people where there's any talk of a fee. No fee for residents for groups of up to 25, and a fee of $25 for non-residents. That's what we're recommending right now. The second level is groups 25 to 50. If you're a resident, the fee would be $25. If you're a non-resident, the fee would be $50. Right now, groups of 50 or more, we're not going to get into accepting anything that big. We really like to let the park get started and make sure that as many people as possible get to experience the park in the first few months. And by putting too many big groups in there, we'll take away that opportunity. Once we feel we're ready to accommodate groups of 50, the fee for them would be determined based on the size of the group and requirements made for the reservation. Depending on if we determine another staff person has to come in, or there's going to need to be a garbage pickup in the middle of the day because of a large group. It really depends on what they say they're going to do. It could be a $75 fee. It could be $100. It could be more. It really will be. We want the option to take a look at that, to wait in order to agree to that. So that's where we are with the fee system. And the reservation. I'm sorry. What we're trying to do is, and I don't know how much Rick was able to get into it. And again, I really apologize for being late. The hard part for us is really going to be the online system. It's very complicated, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get through the whole report, because I do think the board needs to understand what it is we're trying to accomplish. Day of walk-ins, which is an important group of people that we need to be thinking about. Groups of 12 or more will not be allowed on days of a set event without an approved without approved reservation. 12 or less may enter at any time and use any of the 20 spots not reserved that day, including barbecue areas. If all areas are reserved, they may use an open area in the park to gather. So what are we trying to say there? So we've given the staff the assignments for the day. Let's say it's a Sunday in July, and we've got 9 resident reservations for the barbecue area, 3 for the non-residents, and they're all going to get marked in the morning that they're reserved. So whenever that group happens to come in, whether they're coming in at 10 or 12 or 3, the park attendant and the park ranger will both have who's coming in, and they'll just simply be able to tell them, Dr. Lonke, your family's here. Oh, okay, you're in table number 5 underneath the picnic area. He'll go there, his spot is marked, and he'll be able to have his event. So here comes a group of 5, that family we were talking about before. They walk in and they go, gee, we'd like to have a barbecue. There's no permits have been taken for the few that are left. They would absolutely be welcome to go down there and use the area, and they would not be charged a fee for doing so because they'd be less than 12. So we're trying to make sure that, that we can make sure that the walk-ins have a place to go, but yet there's still plenty of time for people to make reservations. We also, in this whole system, which we think is important, is a month out, you can reserve it, whether you're a resident or not. We were playing around with so many different angles. Okay, 4 weeks residents can go, 2 weeks non-residents can go, 7 days before you can't have it. So we ended up trying to be as across the board, fair to everyone, yet keeping in mind we have a responsibility to make sure residents get a little bit extra here, thus the no charge for the groups of up to 25. And that's what the majority of the groups are. Most of the reservations fall under, the 15 to 25, and then there's also a bunch that'll hit that next tier. And the reason we're not dealing with the bigger ones, because there's usually not that many, and those are the ones that usually create the most difficulty for us. So, I think that we've seen everything. We've talked a lot that we know there's going to be a need to make changes as we go. This is going to be complicated. I've described, how the park is going to get used. I use the kind of example when you've got a champion down in a series and they're going home to play a game, and that first 5 minutes of the game, you're going to get their best shot. Well, the first few months this park is open, it's going to take its best shot. People are going to be interested. People are going to want to see what it looks like. They're going to come from different places. They're going to want to be part of it. So if we can weather that first couple of months, have a good plan in place, have a trained staff ready to go, we should be fine. There's still a lot of things that we're talking about. We have tremendous concerns over the management of the use of the splash pad on weekends. So listen, we're way from done, but we wanted you to see where we were. We're looking for some feedback from you. Again, it is what it is right now.
I think it's super wise on the decision with the 50 or more. Talking to several different parks in the river towns and in the county, that was the thing they said was the biggest issue. You have like a company picnic with 350 people, and they said that's literally the only problems we ever have are with huge groups. And I know like Sleepy Hollow has banned them. So I think it's very wise. I think my only question would be, do we need to have the $25 fee for residents and the 25 to 50? But everything else to me seems, I think it's all great. To me,
it's a great question, Brian. I do want to say that if you look at our fees compared to any other community, especially the river towns, we're basically free.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do have pavilions, but a lot of them have similar spaces. There's no comparison that with this fee schedule, we're still low. RPAC, we had lots of disagreements on this. We had members who thought the fees should be 2-3 times higher than what they are. We had other members who thought that residents shouldn't pay anything. So again, as we have to do on tough things, as you guys have to do all the time, we tried to find a compromise. We tried to find something that we thought was the fairest. So we ended up coming up with that.
And I think too, the reservation idea is actually, it can be viewed as an enhancement for our residents, because you don't have to get there as soon as it opens and put your placemats down and your grilling stuff on the grill,
like I did for 20 years.
Exactly. So I think this is great, and the fact that if something's not used, you can still do the walk-ups are still available. I think is a great compromise as well, because I think that's the biggest knock I heard was, I'm not just going to be able to go use the park. And I think you will if it's open, so if there's not reserved. So I think that's a really good idea. I thought that was very well thought out as well. I think all this was very well thought out.
Thank you, Brian. So one of the things that came up is one of the committee members said, so if that family of 8 walks up on Sunday, they're going to be able to walk down, go use a grill, and they're not going to have to pay, and they didn't have to make a reservation. And the answer is yes, because they took that chance.
Took a chance.
They had no idea if they went down there if there was going to be a grill available.
Which is the way it's been forever. Really.
Right. If they took a chance and they were able to get it, good for them. Whereas the other people who thought ahead and reserved it, they also didn't have a problem. So, but on the fee, Rick, I think I represented pretty much where we fell out, right?
Yes, definitely. And I think the whole issue of fees, like we were a little concerned that the 25 and 50 was maybe a number that people may say, let me just pay for it, and if I go, I go. If I don't, I don't. You know what I'm saying? It's
right.
So we have to kind of.
That's a good point.
I mean,
that's
a
great point. And as Rick said, we're also a little concerned that somebody's going to try to go in, and because it's so cheap, or again, even if you're a resident, you book as many as you possibly can, and then you just don't show up, and it makes it harder on us, and it makes it more difficult. So
Joe, we talked about that today. That certainly can happen. And if it were to become a problem, I think there's ways of dealing with it without blowing up this fee format. You can
absolutely
you can take care of limiting people in terms of their registrations if there's a pattern of cancellations, because that clearly is not fair.
No question. We talked about that as well.
Yeah.
Sure,
So
but there's a lot of ways.
Right,
but there's also a lot of ways to beat it. The first reservations could be under my name. The second reservation could be under my partner's name. So it's something we have to monitor. It's one of the things that's key is the need for the staff to be well trained on how to use the website, how to monitor it, how to then evaluate each weekend that passes, see patterns. So it's going to take a great deal of time.
To be honest with you,
but again, you get back to Brian's original question. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
To get back to Brian's original question, the fee for residents for groups of 50, again, we tried to give you a starting point. I don't think any of us are going to, jump up and down if the board decides they want to change any of these or anything else for that matter.
Hey, Joe, a question that our treasurer had.
Yeah,
of course, I saw it.
Yeah. What do you do with refunds now?
Well, we don't charge anyone now, so there are no refunds for the park.
Yes. Right. Okay, so maybe that's something.
So it's a new direction. Obviously, if the park was, it's something we have to think about. If it's a day we close the park because of weather, let's say we're not going to open it, and that's something now that might have to happen because we can't take a chance of people hopping the fence of the playgrounds in bad weather. So in that situation, there's no question anyone who had paid for a reservation would need to get a refund. If they wake up the day of the event and they just don't like the weather, we're not going to give them a refund. Yeah. So, that's just the way it has to be. But we'll be, look, we're not charging. You could tell we're not charging that fee to make money. We're just not. So, if there's a legitimate reason that someone didn't make their event, I mean, we're not going to look to hold anybody hostage. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So just a couple of comments. One, I'm really glad to see that we're going to be able to allow outside kayaks to come in, under controlled circumstances. But I'm glad because I know there was some comments from people that they had been able to do it in the past. And I think, one of the things that we want to try to do, particularly for the residents who are used to, to how things are in Matheson and were in Matheson, is to, not change too many things for the residents and figure out how to incorporate, non-residents into the program as well. Joe, I'll also mention, I mentioned to Rick on the second point about no competitive sports. I was always under the impression that Matheson was always used only for passive recreation. But Rick corrected me that I guess there have been some practices there in the past.
Not because they were supposed to be. So,
Unofficial.
right. We'd end up getting a call. We'd have to deal with it. Here, the reason we want to build that in, Doc, is because we just think it's going to be so tempting to see that northern area of the park, and people are going to start, setting up makeshift games and activities, whether it be, a competitive frisbee or soccer, or a team thinks they can just go and have a baseball practice. We just can't have that, because that would jeopardize the safety of all the other people in the area.
Right. I
so
mean, I know,
think it needs to be known.
I know we're trying not to have too much signage and too many don't, not allowed and not allowed. But I think, having some type of notification, welcoming people to Matheson Park, and stating this is a passive recreation park, even as signage, I think might be an important thing to have, and a way to welcome people and let them know right away that that rule is there. Because you're right. I mean, especially for people that aren't used to it, to see that big area there, and again, I've always considered it to be a place where there was not active recreation going on.
Right.
A couple of other things, just quickly. One, I tend to agree with Brian if we can figure out a way not to, if residents are not being charged now for any of their reservations or group permits, I'd like to try to see if we can continue that. That's one thought. Second is, I guess there needs to be some type of expiration to a reservation for a grill. I'd hate to see a situation where 6 hours into a person not showing up, we're still not letting a walk-in use a grill because someone hasn't shown. So I don't know. I just think that's an easy thing to figure, an easy thing to work. And to me, the hardest thing to figure is the idea of walk-ins and groups of 12 not being allowed in. And there are always people that are going to come in and all on the same team, and and they're all wearing the same family reunion T-shirt, and 4 of them come in, and 10 minutes later 4 more come in, and then and I know that's not going to be an easy thing to handle, and that's part of what where judgment comes in, and hopefully it won't be something which is abused, but I certainly don't disagree with the idea and the policy of groups having to have reservations.
Well,
that's it for my comments.
Yeah. Doc, what was the first thing you brought up?
Just about the kayak racks, being happy that the kayak racks.
I just wanted to address that. The reason we were able to change on that is we heard people, and we felt very bad that had to be a rule that was initially in there. But had we gone forward with the original design and construction of what the pathway was going to look like, it would have been a very dangerous situation for the kayakers, who would have had to walk literally almost the entire length of the hill and then make a turn to the beach. It would just wouldn't have worked. So once that was changed, immediately we decided there was room here, and that's why we made the change.
Great.
Signage you brought up, very important. Still haven't figured out where and what we're going to have, taking under consideration all of the comments from people about being welcoming. We're trying to balance that with things that absolutely need to be seen and understood by people who use the park, especially in the playground area. So we have to look at that. The walk-ins of a group on a day of will most certainly be an enormous challenge. And I hope to make sure to give the staff as much training as possible. But I don't know if Rick addressed this, but here's the problem with that. There is no staff right now. We have sent the announcements to every municipality in Westchester. If I'm not mistaken, Larry even sent it through Paul Feiner. We asked every rec community to spread the word. We have one application for positions that I was hoping to have at least 8 or 10 people for, because it would take a rotation. And I'm not sure where we're going to be in 2 or 3 weeks if those numbers don't change. We may have to consider upping the price that we pay in order to attract people. I was certain we'd get a couple of retired people, who might be looking to have a nice day in the park. And, I almost envisioned somebody being the park attendant, sitting on the new slab we're setting up in the park for them. And then when they were done, go sit in the park there for a couple of hours with friends or something. But I just haven't seen it yet. And I'm very surprised by it. I really am. I was hoping to be able to pick and choose what I thought would have made up the best team of people instead of, just having to take whatever comes our way. Very concerned about that.
I do think that that's a national problem right now.
Yes, it is. I agree. Yeah.
We agree with that.
I mean, it doesn't make it any better for us, but
no. No, and if we're in that position in 3 weeks, we're all going to have a discussion as to what plan we have moving forward. The options I don't think are great, but we're going to have to come to some understanding as to what we expect to happen.
You're making it sound so good. I was about to apply for the job.
Applications are available on the village website.
I'll write you a recommendation, Connie.
Oh, thanks.
No, and look, too, and one of the reasons is it's a very difficult job in certain ways. We're going to, as much as we want to try to make this as easy and as positive as possible, there are people who just don't listen. You heard Dr. Lonke read the messages the other night. If my phone rang one more time on Saturday and Sunday for dogs in Scenic Hudson Park, I was going to throw it out the window. The suggestion I got was put up bigger signs. If I put up a bigger dog sign, you're not going to see the entrance to the park. People, there are times where people just want to do what they want to do. And that's infuriating because of the people who really try to enjoy and respect the park. Larry and I had such a great experience yesterday meeting with the high school principal and her team to discuss high school graduation. And we met on the south end, which we call Whitey's Mountain. And then we met in the middle of the ball field. And I just turned to Larry and I said, "Hey, boss, we did pretty good here." It was just spectacular to see how beautiful. I even posted a few pictures online because I just was so proud of the way it looked. And after 22 years, how, it's got some problems, but it's still in pretty good shape. So, we want to make sure we can keep Matheson the same way.
Well, I was kidding, but
no, of course.
But but I really appreciate everybody's comments, Dr. Lonke's too. I had mentioned a few things before you got here, but I don't need to say that over again. But you mentioned, and I think Rick and everybody is pretty aware that this community pass introduction to this reservation system and the use of the park is going to be a really important tool to get people knowledgeable and ready for what to expect, making the staff's job a little easier if that setup on Community Pass is the best it can be. So there are all kinds of things that I know you've heard about, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds of it, but I think the more that they know there and the language and how it's written will be pretty important. I did have a couple of, kind of a little bit in the weeds, but I think Larry Lonke, you kind of hit on this a little bit, but if people really know they only want a few hours, like 10:30 to 12, shouldn't they let you know that so that, it's available otherwise? So part day, whole day. The other one is, I think I expect you have discussed this, but both residents and non-residents who come up with some kind of bad behavior. We don't expect it, but if it happens, let's say they don't show up several times, they don't cancel out, or there's really bad behavior when they've been there, they're the group of 20. You know, people are warned, whatever. I expect you'll think that through, but I would think that, you know, I know everybody's going to be sensitive to treating everybody the same, and be as strict or non-strict with these things. And I know you know that because we've talked so much about training, and how staff teach people. And but the other thing was about I think you implied this, and I imagine this is the case. You said that some of the reservations are kind of near the river. I'm going to assume that you can always walk around and be close to the river, even if you're just a, you know, I came and I'm here and I want to be near the river.
There's no question about that. Don't have any concern about that.
Right, because and it's big and it's beautiful and it's a wonderful
Right.
place. I think I have wrote down a couple of other things. Yeah, if you don't want to grill, you just want some tables. You don't like to grill. I never grill. I don't grill at home. I don't grill in the parks. If I wanted just tables and I don't want a grilling space, can I indicate that? Freeze it up for people that want it?
Well, can I answer that? So, if you really want to be underneath, and I call it the canopy of the trees, where where the grills are going to be, and you want to be under there, but you don't plan on using the grill, you would just recommend, you would just ask for it, because you still need to get a reservation. And if you want to be there, don't use the grill. We're not going to come and say, hey, put that grill on. So you'd have the ability to do that. If you wanted to be in the sun more, if you wanted to be closer to the water, you would take one of the 5 locations that we'll be saving for reservations along the water's edge, which won't have any grills to them. So you'll have an option to do that. I mean, that's a great point. I know some people who will want to be under the shade, if they're a resident and they're coming in with 15 to 25 people, they're gonna be smart and take a grill spot. And even though you might get upset because they're not using it, it's their right. It's their spot. If they want it and they put a reservation in, I'm not going to go yell at them because they didn't use the grill.
I was just wanted to make it available to somebody who wanted it. If there were places in the shade with tables that you reserve, and you don't want to be selfish and take a scarce resource that you don't want to use.
Right.
So that was my point on
Right.
that.
There's obviously not too many places along the river's edge where there's much shade for anybody.
Right.
And how we're going to use the north end of the park, beyond the playground, closest to the tracks, we haven't determined that either. That could potentially become another group of 3 or 4 spots where people wouldn't have a grill but could gain shade. So that's another possibility.
Okay, well, I'd put in a vote for that. I thought it might be awkward, I know you've figured, you know, you probably debated this, but the line under day of walk-ins, 12 or less may enter at any time and use any of the 20 spots. That's fine. Groups of 12 or more will not be allowed on days of events without an approved reservation. So I'm just trying to imagine a pretty empty park and a group of 12 people come in and they don't have a reservation, and somebody has to stand there and say, there are only 2 people here in the park, but I'm sorry, you're 12 and you can't come. That seems awkward to me.
It is awkward. And we've talked about this on several occasions because we realized that wording, no matter how we decided to word that, was going to bring up some controversy. To just refresh, what we said is the key is going to be applying common sense by the person that's working as the park attendant. If it's a scenario you laid out and it's an innocent enough looking group of people who, like someone said before, show up with those all family reunion shirts on, and there's no one in the park, and there would be absolutely no reason if that group wanted to come in that they wouldn't be allowed to do so. But if it's a Saturday or Sunday where 80% of what we allow for reservations is taken and the playgrounds are filled, and here comes a group at the gate with a food truck behind them thinking they're going to be able to come in, you know, that's the gate attendant, the park attendant needs the ability to say no under certain circumstances.
Yeah, well,
And if you take that away, that you're really going to be creating a tougher time, and you're going to jeopardize the experience of everyone who's in the park. So there's a time and a place for it.
Yeah, so as we've said many times, the training and the approach of the staff is key. So
Absolutely.
if I set that out, that's a lot different from the example you used, which yes, 80% beautiful day. How could you let another group of 12 come in when it was practically full? But in that other case, I think yes, and because we know everybody's going to be trained to use good judgment, but to be fair, it can't just be, well, I know you because you live on Jaffrey Park, and so sure, come on in.
Right.
So I think all that, it depends on a good community pass system and well-trained people whom maybe Janice or maybe Mark wants to apply for the job. I don't know.
Wait, you don't want to apply for it, but you're volunteering Mark and me to do it? No, I don't think so.
Connie, I want to go back to your first point, which was about what about someone who puts in a request and they leave and then the grill's left open the rest of the day?
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons on the format we're creating, people will give us their times.
That's a good idea.
And their start time and their finish time, so that there is an opportunity if a group puts in to say, have somebody wants to go in and they're going to have a little league award ceremony and they're going to finish it with hot dogs and they want to be out of the park by 1 because they want the families to do what they want. If we see that, we're working on a mechanism that would allow for a half-day reservation where somebody can pick up on it. And an example would be the park ranger would make sure that area that was vacated was properly cleaned. And if they need to do anything extra, they could do it so that the next group coming in finds it the same way the group who came in at 9 a.m. finds it. So that's
you only need to do that on the busiest. You only need to do that on the busiest of days. You know what I mean? Those extreme days.
Right.
That's without question. That's only going to happen on a Saturday or a Sunday or a holiday. The other days, it's just not going to happen.
Also, Connie, one of your original questions was about how would you handle, the people who are habitual cancelers, and that's part of the reason why when you make a reservation, it's not a guaranteed reservation, because Joe and staff will look at the totality of the reservations and say, well, this person has, for lack of a better term, stiffed us 3 times, rented it, but never showed up. How do we want to handle that? So there is a mechanism for weeding out the people who are not, acting in good faith.
Right.
And I do think there is a way to address it using a cancellation fee. We don't need to go that tonight, but I think cancellation fee then puts skin in the game.
Right.
It's not charging the resident if they show up, but if they don't show up, then there's a penalty for that. So
they do it at restaurants now. Like if you make a reservation, you don't show up, they charge you $50 a head or whatever. Even like Resi and those things. So
And
your credit card number, and you don't use it except if they don't show up or something. Let's not imagine problems we don't have yet.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The community pass system that we're working with, just so you know, is going to include all of our parks by the time we're done. So if you went on and you were registered as an active user, you would then go to, say, Parks and Facilities. And when you clicked on that, you'd have the ability to fill out a form to request a ball field at Scenic Hudson or Memorial, to bring a group on a hike at the Irvington Woods Park. You'll have all those opportunities. All of those applications and forms we already have, and each one's a little unique to the park. So there wasn't a way to have a generic group park form because every park is so unique and has its own amenities. So we have to give them their own. But Matheson, obviously, because of its newness, is going to require the most thought in putting everything together. And the training, again, is intense. I mean, to get to today where we are with Community Pass, Maureen, Angela, Mike, and Laura have gone through probably over 50 hours of training. to get to where they are and to show how it's worked. Maureen, who, would have never recommended herself to be the greatest computer person in the world like me, she's managing her whole day camp account. We have over 120 people signed up, paid, immunization records, everything we needed. And if you told me that's where we would be with it right now, I would have told you it would have been a long shot. But the staff has been amazing. Now, the training for just Matheson, we had a 2-hour meeting today with the administrator of Community Pass, giving us options, showing us what to do, telling us what information to put together. Mikey will be submitting that to them. Then there'll be 2 days of training for the staff that I asked to be part of that. It's going to at least include 3 or 4 members of the staff so that we all have the ability to manage it. And what we have done that will make it a little easier is the form for people making a reservation is the same whether you're a resident, you're a non-resident, you're a less than 12, you're a more than 25. And then when you file it, it then gets reserved. And if it's approved, you'll know right away. And it'll say your request has been approved pending payment. Once you make your payment, then it will mean that you're put in the system as having a reservation. So there's a lot of steps. We've gotten where we are. We'll get to where we have to be, but it's demanding a lot more staff time than I expected. If we were doing the budget over again, I would have put in for a online administrator to help us with what we're up against. But we'll manage right now.
I think this is well worth it because I think that platform, it's an introduction for people to this park, and that has a lot of information they ask for and they learn, I'd say it's well worth the time. It's like the advanced preparation for like your knee surgery or something. Or,
what I'd urge all of you to do, if you haven't, is you should go on our site and register. And I think it gives you the reason I'd ask you to do it if you have it is if you see things that you think we can improve upon, it'd be better to hear it from you than from other people. And you couldn't reserve a picnic table if you don't do that. Right. And getting people to understand that, especially non-residents, is also part of our homework in getting that information out.
It takes so little time to do, so it's painless essentially.
It is. But what'll happen is if you go to register today to get a permit and it's your first time on our site, you may not be able to fill out the park request because it takes hours before you're cleared to be in the system. So we've encouraged people with day camp, sign up Monday and then register Tuesday. So we have to have that same type of informational release to the public on how they need to be ready to make their reservation. We had a call today for a reservation in August in Matheson. So we said, please call back in a few weeks.
Well, I mean, I think it can be linked to the village website because some people might go to irvingtonny.gov. And as usual, you get a link to recreation and that could happen. I didn't say anything about the fees. I'm sure you struggled with this. I'm sure there was a lot of conversation. I thought 25 to 50, non-residents are double residents. On the other hand, residents do have to pay, I'm going to leave it and let us figure how well it works. But I'm sure on every side, you'll get some complaints. So I won't be one of them. I'm going to leave it where it is.
I think you guys are in the perfect position of that. You're not going to make everybody happy. And probably the only thing you'll hear initially are the complaints, the things that.
Oh, yeah.
But this is, you're ready for that, right? You're no stranger to this. But, I read through this and at first I was like, well, what about this? What about this? And then when I read it again, I thought, no, actually, they've pretty much taken care as best you can without knowing how it's going to work. So, I give full credit to those of you who spent a massive amount of time trying to think through every scenario here, and let's see how it works. There's nothing in this that's carved on a stone tablet. If it needs to be edited or changed, it can be.
That's an important point. I think we've got to be fluid. We've got to be ready to react to something that we may have made a mistake on.
Right, something might happen the first week and you think, oh, you never even.
Exactly.
So, but I think you've thought of pretty much everything, and much appreciation for all of the time that has gone into coming up with this.
As you say that, I would like to say in 34 years, 10 months of being your superintendent, having dealt with the swimming pool issue, having been part of the public vote that was held in the then middle school auditorium, and I was charged with counting the votes when they came in, and being through the building of Scenic Hudson Park and many, many other subjects, I don't think my then called commissions, my now called RPAC committee, has ever had a more difficult task or been challenged more and had good people on opposite ends of very important topics. And I have so much respect for each of them. And I don't think I've ever disagreed more with as many of them as I had ever, but it was necessary. And you know, I'm telling you, if we had to pay them like you guys, if we had to pay you by the hour, if we had to pay them by the hour that went in to try to do this right, you know, Brenda would not be looking as calm as she does right now, because our budget would be a lot different. So I cannot say enough for the people on RPAC.
That's another sign you should put on the gate. We tried to do this right. You know? That's all you can do at this point, because there's so many unknowns. And thank you all for the time that was obviously put into it.
Are you familiar with where the park attendant is going to be? Because I know that's a very sensitive topic.
20
So
feet down.
if you go in the park, there's a fire hydrant about 15 feet on the right-hand side of the pathway. Just beyond that will be a 10x5 or a 10x6 leveled slab where the park attendant will be able to have a table, a chair, an umbrella if needed. That way people don't get that in your face at the gate concern many have had. You'll be in the park where you've already been welcome because you've been allowed to walk in. And unless you clearly are violating a basic rule, you're going to simply be told, have a nice day, enjoy the park. Do you have any questions? So we thought by bringing it into the park further, it would help. It also will allow us to make the entrance to the park safer, because busy days and holidays, the entrance to the park, because people think they can unload, 5 truckloads worth of stuff, carry it down to their table, and then walk back up and park. Those days are gone. So we're addressing how to deal with the outside of the park with support from DPW and the police, how we're going to do that. And it'll be a good system too. But the park attendant will definitely not be, and I'll say it again, the in your face as soon as you get there type of thing. So we know that was something you cared a lot about, so we took it into consideration.
And like Joe said, there's 2 reasons why it shouldn't be at the bottom of the hill. One is we don't want anybody schlepping a keg all the way down that hill, only to be told you can't have it and have to go back up.
I'd never do it again.
But, yeah, wow,
That's true.
But, and the other thing is, we're very concerned about safety on that hill, and we want somebody to be at the top of the hill to tell a person, the young child or the young person, to either step off his scooter or skateboard and or bicycle, because it's so tempting. You see a hill like that and zoom, they're going to go right down the hill.
Rick, thank you so much. That should have been the first thing I said to you when we talked about the entrance to the park, is that slowing, not so much the kid on a 3-wheel and a big wheel coming in, but the adult people who live to bicycle, who see that open gate in that hill and think they're going to be able to go down it at a high speed. The person that's called the park attendant's main job is to slow people down. Please, to get off your bike until you get to the bottom of the hill and then have fun. It has to be a major part of their job up there. And again, being sensitive, we're not calling the position a gate attendant. He is a park, or she is a park attendant. And then there's the park ranger, again, trying to hear what you've been saying and take under consideration. So you cannot take that person away from the gate on weekends. You just cannot. And as long as they know their role and they slow people down and are ready to welcome everyone, we'll be set to roll. Just find me a few people.
this is my last comment, since I'm not taking the job, but are you gonna have shirts that say something like,
Yep.
welcome to?
In fact, Brenda will fall down tomorrow when she sees the bill for them.
Oh,
We've gotten fluorescent shirts for the many park workers. They all say Irvington Rec and Parks on the chest, and they have staff in big white letters in the back. No one will be mistaken if that they're working in the park those days. So.
I thought it would say, welcome to Matheson Park.
Oh, I was hoping you didn't say that.
Could you send them back and get other ones?
I don't think I have any more money in my budget.
All
Well, I
right, so
think-
any other questions?
I think the big key is that, we said, I think Rick led off with, we're going to adjust these as we go. And I think that that's the key. We're going to see what works. And, my guess is we've gotten about 80 to 90% right off the bat, and then we'll fix the other 10%. So I'm confident that, this is all well thought out, and it's, I think we can make it work. Again, management's the key, and we have no better manager than Joe. And, our PAC is a great, board of trustees for him, and Rick's a great chair. So we have every confidence that this will work. And if it doesn't work out of the gate, we'll fix it. And, it might mean we end up not needing to have, the fee for residents, or it might mean we have to double the fee for non-resident. Who knows? Like, we'll figure it out as we go. And, we communicate every day. So.
Ready.
Great. But thanks again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, please accept my apologies for being late.
No worries.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Joe.
And to
Thanks,
all the
Joe.
RPAC members watching, thank you, guys.
Okay. Okay, I think everyone's set here. So we're back to just the board. Capital budget. Okay, so what we'd like to do is, I think fairly quickly, we have a half hour in our allotted time, right? So we'll try to, even a little less than a half hour, so we'll try to move through this. I'd like to, I'll put it up on the screen, but go through the draft, at least of the first year of the capital budget, give you a flavor of what some of the larger projects are that we're accounting for, answer any questions you might have. Brenda is also able to kind of go through a little summary of projections of tax rates, and at least for next year, and to give you a sense of where these numbers could fit in with that, just to put it in context for you. And then I think the plan here is, obviously we'll field any questions you have. If we don't have the information, we'll certainly get back to you. And then we would look to try to finalize this sometime in June, depends on the level of questions and all that, but either the first meeting or the second meeting in June. First meeting might be a little busy, so maybe we'll focus on the second. But get the capital budget in place, and get the borrowings necessary to fund that capital budget. Those are the steps that we're looking forward to. So with that, I will share my screen. So this capital budget, again, was prepared by meetings with the department heads. They obviously, looked ahead as far as they could, in some cases out to, beyond 2030. Took a look at what their operations are in need of, whether it's equipment or construction projects and such. And we've assembled this here for you. So by department, you can see DPW here. Certainly the major items, I mean, the significant items are always infrastructure, as you'd expect in a public works department. And so they've requested $120,000 in curb installation money. And that's kind of on a rotating basis. We don't necessarily do that every year, but this is the year where that comes up. The other items, infrastructure maintenance and paving, you can see there that there's a relatively small amount that needs to be bonded. The rest of it is in the operating budget, which I know you're familiar with, by providing for recurring annual monies to address those issues. Infrastructure maintenance being anything from sidewalks to stormwater drainage, some curbing, limited degree. And of course, paving is our annual approach. And then in addition to the paving that's listed here, we also receive typically around $100,000, $90,000 to $100,000 of dedicated money from New York State that we often use for paving. So that's what we call CHIPS. So that's not the only paving that we do that's listed here. The rest of this budget is devoted to equipment. Some of it's fairly expensive, as you can see, but these are on a rotating schedule, and these are, in the case of the $190,000 dump truck, that's not a new piece of equipment. That's
I'll add that it's replacing a piece of equipment purchased in 2004.
right.
So
This is not, we don't just get 5 years out of a $200,000 dump truck, as you'd expect. In fact, we probably get more out of it than most.
And so the pickups last were purchased in 2003.
So
Yeah.
why do we put life as 5 years if we know it's way more? Why is it?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we're tied to the schedule that the New York State local finance law outlines. So local finance law defines what the life is for any particular type of borrowing. In the case of trucks and cars and things like that, they've said it's 5 years. We might get 8, 10, 15 years out of it, but it doesn't matter. We have to pay it off over 5. And we're not permitted to pay it off over any longer. So that's written in law.
Okay, thanks.
Moving on. Go ahead.
I was just going to give my caveat up front is that I hope we're tracking, alternate fuel vehicles. In particular, I know everyone has seen President Biden driving a F-150 Lightning all-electric pickup.
That was awesome.
So, I know that we don't necessarily, every time I bring this up, I know it's a question about when does it become generally mass market, but I want to just emphasize it's important to keep that in focus.
Yeah.
Even we buy one that's a trial to see if it can solve our needs in different ways.
Well, we actively look at that all the time, frankly, and also the commercial availability is only one requirement. It also has to be suitable for the type of job. And one of the challenges with our pickup trucks, while it's ordinarily during normal usage, probably an electric vehicle could work. During a plowing operation, that would be much more challenging. I don't think we'd have to look at that very closely on how to have a rotating system to plow and then recharge and so on. So it presents challenges that some tasks don't. But we look at that all the time. That's no question as the market changes. If there's any other questions, just interrupt if there's any other questions. The fire department obviously is very, very low. That's also a fairly old vehicle, around 10 years old. The library has identified their public bathrooms as in need of renovation. I'm not sure if they're also addressing ADA accessibility as well. I don't recall the details.
That, and also to upgrade it to a touchless, faucets and things that would be just a little more current with, sanitary things and not touching.
Yeah, so that they've requested that.
That's based on a bid they already received. So that was that's a good estimate for the required amount.
The police, the major items here, well, you can see one was crossed out. That's actually a change from what was originally published on the agenda. Just a little fine tuning here, but I'll explain as we go here. So the automated parking system, I know we talked about this just prior to the pandemic. To be perfectly honest with you, the project was put on hold during the pandemic. There was no parking enforcement going on. We were obviously dedicated to dealing with a lot of other things and not that. What we would like to do is institute something that would be essentially electronic chalking of tires. It would use license plate reader technology in order to electronically mark tires and then identify parking violations and also permit violations to the extent that we have permit lots. It would also be done by license plate and not by a tag hanging from a windshield or anything like that. We've reviewed systems. We've seen them in action. We're impressed with how they work. The one issue is we actually can't install it in our all EV parking vehicle that we have because the system uses a pretty significant amount of power and would run the battery down very quickly. We've getting some confirmation on that to be sure. So this project is actually priced to include the purchase of a hybrid vehicle, and the hybrid vehicle should be able to handle the extra load because the engine can just turn on to supplement the battery. So that's unfortunate, but there's really no way around it. Records management systems is another large item here. This is probably a high side number. We actually don't have a final number on this, but we do know that our records management system that's been in use for at least several decades that I can recall, maybe 3 decades, is at the end of its useful life. It's actually not being supported by the vendor that it is from. It's largely proprietary. So many of the departments in the county are searching for a new records management system, including the county. And so there may be a solution that involves joint purchasing or joint contracting on this. So we don't expect the number to be quite this high, but we're just kind of hedging our bets a bit. But that system needs to be replaced. It also is responsive to the to some of the recommendations that came out of the Police Reform Committee. Some of the items that they had suggested will be easily implemented in a new records management system. Body cams, I took off the list. We actually have the money ready to roll on that, so we don't need any extra. So that was frankly, it was just a mistake. The body cam project is being implemented, as you heard from the chief back during budget season. So there's no change in that. It's just that no additional money is needed at this point.
Larry, are we purchasing and owning the body cams, or are they some type of a rental situation?
It looks like their ownership, but the cost of them is not significant. What's significant is the maintenance, which is like, I don't mean just, it's like a really comprehensive warranty, where they'll get replaced quickly if they're damaged, which I think can happen, fairly frequently. So there's annual maintenance and then annual storage fees. The money we have set aside will cover all of that for the first year. I think we had that conversation during budget season.
Right, I remember.
And but then after that, the only thing we're paying for, and we still have to work that into the annual budget next year, is about $25,000 annually for maintenance and storage fees.
Right, there's a high initial cost, I remember, and then.
Yeah. And some of it's being supplemented by a grant. We have a $30,000 grant from the federal government on this.
Thanks.
All right. Recreation. I mean, there's a lot of projects here. I know.
Hang on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Expanded Main Street cameras, weapon-mounted lights and holsters.
Mhm.
So there's 4 of them past body camera.
Okay. What do you have questions about? I know the Main Street camera one was a recommendation similar to the ones that are installed around Village Hall, was to install them in a couple of other locations. I think Broadway, and I think at the bottom of the hill, but I don't know if Brenda has details on that. If not, we can get them for you for sure.
And who recommended that?
It's from Chief Pignatelli.
Just wanted to know now.
Yep.
What is weapon-mounted lights and holsters?
That's a combination. it's the lights and then
The holster that accommodates them. It's
Right.
basically, if you've seen the lights, you have basically there's a, the little flashlight can actually clip into the gun. So you can, when you pull your revolver, or not revolver, your automatic, semi-automatic, you can actually have a light right on your light as opposed to having a second light when you hold in your hand. And then there's obviously you'd have to have a holster that can accommodate that. We can get the details of the exact specifications of the models, but that's the basic gist.
So is it safer because the light doesn't require you to use another hand and that it's automatically goes on, or?
It doesn't usually automatically go on, but it's just different. It's you actually, I mean, when they do the training, they train with holding a flashlight and things. It's just different training, but we can ask Frank why he thinks it's important now. But
yeah, I can certainly get a little bit of color on that for you.
if you Google it, you can see what it looks like.
And okay, so I'll get back to you on that.
Electric bikes, I mean, that's.
Yeah, that came directly from the police committee discussions that they recommended. They recommended more, well, not some, I mean, foot patrol, of course, but they recommended bike patrol. And, the availability of the electric bikes obviously gives you a wider range that you can cover, and much more versatile and much more conducive to the hills that we have on Main Street. So, those weren't as available in the past. So I think this is a good improvement on that.
I know this is going to sound weird, but where do they get stored and charged?
Oh, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but I can find out what they're planning. I'm sure they'll find someplace in headquarters. So,
but that 16,000 is the charging station as well.
we'll find out, unless Brenda has details on that. But I assume it's the whole package, but we'll find out.
Whole package, right? I think the battery actually comes out and you charge it in an outlet.
Right. Okay. We'll find out.
It's a total of 3 bikes at that price.
That was my next question,
3
Brenda.
bikes for 16,000.
Okay. And then, Brenda, we combined a couple of smaller items. Do you have the detail on the police?
Yes, it was a combination of actual Glock replacements. There's a new generation to replace. It's now the 5th generation. They're replacing them. That's a $14,000 item. Then also you have a radar unit for traffic vehicle, dual stalker radar unit for traffic vehicle. It's a vehicle mounted radar for vehicle and traffic, 5,000. So it's a combination of those 2 items.
And that's expected to be, that's the unit that'll be used by the dedicated traffic officer, which we are now, just getting to full complement in our department, as you recall. So we're going to get that back in operation. Long awaited.
I have more information on the bikes. I'm just looking at it now. It's comes with fenders, kickstand, rear rack is 3 of them. They're about 4,600 each. Comes with a bag, headlights, tail light, accessories, and they don't specify exactly how the battery is charged. But from what I've seen, there's a battery that gets removed. So
we'll find out.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to recreation. You can see some of the larger projects here. The one remaining item, not one, but the major remaining item in Matheson Park is the storage building. And that's been on our radar screen for some time. And that needs replacement in pretty poor condition. As is the one in Scenic Hudson Park, as you can see here. I'm just looking at anything else significant. Park security cameras. We We do have cameras currently. They're only modestly useful. They store information only locally because they have no connectivity. And this project would create some connectivity so that they can be fed back and monitored, from the police department, if that's where, or even the recreation department can at least have access to that kind of live. Current system is, like I said, it's moderately useful, but there's been a few times where it's not been storing information when we thought it should have been, and we didn't have the information when there was damage or vandalism or some incident took place. So it was not as useful as we need.
Question about the storage building for Matheson Park. $200 was a 5-year anticipated life?
Yeah, and we'll have to double check on that. That's yeah, you're right. It very well could be 10, but I have to see. We have to look at that schedule and just confirm that. So
right, because I know on others the anticipated life, is kind of balanced with the
10. Yeah. We'll look at that and double check to make sure. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
And what's a top dresser?
Well, you can guess what it is, but it's not something you put in your bedroom.
Not a chest of drawers.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a field maintenance, a piece of equipment that they drive around, and it is used for maintenance of their fields. So they have one currently. This is a replacement.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And now the fun stuff.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to probably defer a little bit on this to Brian, because I know he's had more conversations with Greg Allen than I probably have on this. But as you know, they're currently studying the possible installation of some sort of ventilation system, which would include air conditioning, I think, naturally by extension. So Brian, I don't know, where we are in terms of this being a required thing or and recommended thing, or how.
So far, it almost seems like it's gray. Originally, they thought there was gonna be like a standard, but I think what they found was theaters are so different. So like Tarrytown Music Hall upgraded their HVAC system. I've actually been trying to find out exactly what they did and how much it cost, but I think that, and any of the Broadway folks I speak to, they're like, oh yeah, we're all upgrading our HVAC systems.
Well, that's because they have HVAC systems to begin with.
Exactly right. So that's the biggest key, is that we don't have any way to kind of turn air over. So I'm not sure. I don't think that the governor has actually given any guidance on this. It seems like he's been much more focused on if people are fully vaccinated or not. Like Radio City's opening 100% for the last time to Tribeca Film Festival, but you have to be vaccinated. So it seems like they've almost gone a slightly different route right now, but I'm not sure if that's going to change. But I think when Greg and I were talking, to us, it just seemed like if this becomes a more common occurrence, hopefully not, right? But if there's ever been a time when turning air over and having good air quality, it makes sense, it's now. And I was looking at, like, the Small Business Administration has some grants, but it's only up to, I think, something like 25%, or maybe it's 45% of your maximum of your revenue. So, but it's like, it seems like it's pretty easy to get. It caps out at 10 million. Unfortunately, we can't get that much, but so I feel like there's also potentially money out there for this. So, I would hope to see that it might be this number, and we obviously were having that study going on, but the amount we'd have to borrow would hopefully be much less. I think this is a decent placeholder for an estimate. How much we can actually try to go out and find is another part of the story. But, I think that we have talked about this, Connie, I think, since we've been on the board, and we've talked about phasing it in, to me, it almost seems like the pandemic, it kind of gave me a renewed focus on getting this done. And I think we also did try to tied into the, the new entrance project. And there's been a lot of things that have kind of put this on hold, but maybe it's time to, depending on what the feasibility study says, it's time to maybe try to bite the bullet and look for funding. I'm guessing some of it will have to come from the capital budget, but I'm hoping it's not nearly this much.
No, I think you were wise, Brian, to use this time to bring this up, because that issue of ventilation, air circulation, and then the air conditioning kind of, which used to be our prime thought about this, is now like, yeah.
It's a tertiary thing, yeah.
And it
Exactly
also
right.
air conditioning, by the way.
Yeah.
I did talk to Greg today because I knew, this, all these things are connected, but part of the discussion in the past was worry about the historic nature of the theater and the Tiffany room on the first floor, and when any negative happened. And I think we're at the point, at least Greg seemed to think, that any plan would be very, very sensitive to not disrupting anything, like Ed Marin's office or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I had a couple of, questions about the new, the plan for the potential very exciting new entrance, and this would be alongside that, because this is the original part. The new entrance, of course, would have an HV system. So anyway, I was thrilled to see this in consideration. I thought right away there's a lot of money for theaters and arts and cultural, and how to get that going robustly again. So
yep, absolutely. And it'd be a real shame if they do come up with some kind of requirements, or even if certain acts were like, well, if you don't have a, you can't show us that you turn over the air every 4 times an hour, or whatever it is, that we're not going to play there. I mean, then we also the old reasons for it too, being able to use it from, kind of May to September, like that.
yeah, I mean,
It's sad that it goes dark because of heat. And it's also in like the attic, essentially. So it's the hottest part of the building as well. So, sometimes even though September shows are uncomfortable up there. So, to me, expanding programming and having camps in the summer, and there's just, to me, it seems like a lot of positives to this. And the one negative is, it's $1 million. So, but, it's
so why
also,
don't we,
go ahead, Lauren.
for this kind of thing, I was on the CFA thing for the state, and you keep turning around and seeing arts and culture and economic development and Main Street revitalization. You put a whole lot of ideas together, and I think the chance of getting that would be decent. So I think I doubt that it will be this much that we actually pay for, but I'm glad to see it there.
So why don't we do this from a mechanics standpoint? I mean, normally projects that are listed here, when and if they're approved, are then carried forward, and we borrow the money and start executing on the project. Maybe in this case, and possibly in the next paragraph here in the water department, we'll do the same thing. Why don't, for these projects, why don't we leave it in here as a placeholder if you so choose. But when it comes time to do the bond resolutions, we won't do the bond resolution for this particular item, because I think we do need more clarity on exactly how much we're going to be borrowing, or we're going to need to borrow. $1 million is, I think, the worst case scenario. I hope. If it's more than that, we've got a bigger issue. And if we can't find any funding, that's a significant thing as well. So we can keep it in the plan, but we just won't recommend it for borrowing when it comes time. If that makes sense.
And I think we can do some, obviously getting the feasibility study is going to be the biggest key, but reaching out to our usual contacts in the state, and our grant writer, and even looking at, even if the SBA loan we get $40,000, that helps. Hopefully we can figure this out, and it is historically low interest rates, so there's a lot of reasons to really push this now, and not just say we'd love to have it, but it's too hard.
Okay. So yeah, I think keeping it in sends that message that you want it done. Is essentially, you know, but just the mechanics of it, we're not going to borrow $1 million and have it sitting around until we figure this out. So, Brenda,
Exactly.
did you have a question, Brenda?
No, I didn't. No.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So then the other item, which I kind of put in that same category, is the River Road water main replacement. That's a project which is basically shovel ready. We have the engineering done. It's been approved by Westchester County Department of Health. We applied for a New York State water grant year before last, I believe, 2019, and it was denied. 2020, I believe that same water money that was made available, it's a specific pot of money in New York State, there was no grant round last year, if I recall correctly, probably because of the pandemic and the financial situation at that point. But we do expect the grant round this year, and in some cases, you know, water infrastructure is being specifically called out. So we are going to do there's no super emergency on this water main replacement. I know that there have been problems down there in the past. I think we're in a place where things are relatively stable. But so we are going to take the time to use to take our completed plans and try to seek out funding. I think we can be successful in some level. So again, it's in the plan, but really it's going to hinge on outside funding. So I wouldn't borrow for this right now. All right, and that's it for this particular upcoming year. There are other years. You know, you have the capital budget draft. There's future years that we have larger projects allocated for, like a ladder truck, a replacement of the firehouse, a replacement of the DPW facility. There's larger projects like that are accounted for, but certainly not ready to go. But we're trying to do our best planning on that. So I thought Brenda and I were talking today, and I think what would be helpful, we'll try to wrap up quickly here. I'm sorry that we're going over a little bit. Is that we can try to put this in context. So this is a $3.7 million of new projects, some of which belongs to the water fund. But the balance belongs to the general fund, which is subject to taxation. So we thought it might be helpful to give you a real outline overview of, I'm just pulling it up here, of what this does to our tax levy potentially next year. Because next year, the projects you approve this year, next year you need to pay for them. So hold on one second here.
There we go. Well, what I did here is I call this the back of the napkin kind of figure. Looking ahead for next year, we have some items that we know will occur, and those are salary increases for police, union and non-union. I sketched in here a couple of numbers based upon the CSCA contract. I gave a 5% increase for health insurance, which is kind of middle of the road, not too conservative, not over the top. Workers' comp and regular insurance, about a 3% increase. I hope to see a decrease in the retirement rates because of the steep increase we just received last year. Plus, when they do the actuarial reports, it was taken at the low spot of the market at the end of March 2020. All those things together give a $218,000 approximate increase that we would need to establish a levy for. And all things being equal, such as the assessment roll, the amount of surplus that we designate, that would result in a tax levy increase of approximately 1.66%.
That's without any regard for any capital budget or debt. So that's the next line here.
Or any departmental requests, or even putting in for the maintenance for the body cams, police body cams. Then we have our new the existing debt schedule. Because it's being paid off, we would see a decrease in debt service by 44,000. The new bonding, however, would increase the required funding for next year's budget by 474,000. Together, netted out, that would increase the tax levy by 2.85%. You see there on the bottom, the estimated levy increase of 647,000, that would result in a 4.29%. So clearly you can see the impact on.
So Brenda, is that with all of it in there? Is that with the?
That's just it, right? I didn't take out, I just looked at, if we took out the air conditioning, that would bring it down by 130,000. During the day, I looked at what would the new bonding be to bring it into about 2%? And that new bonding would be about 144,000.
And does that also count the water department piece in there or no?
It does not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, the water.
It shouldn't.
Yeah, no, right, exactly.
I was hoping you did by accident.
You were trying to catch us, huh?
Yeah. Well, so how does the math work on the new bonding? Obviously, it's the interest rate, and then you have to pay off the certain amount of principal in that first year.
Correct. It'd be about, yes, it would be the amount of principal required to be paid off.
And
I don't know, Larry, did you plug an estimated, well, the rates are low. But
I did, yeah. Well, so the way we calculate, the way we project our debt service is really straight line payments. So
yeah,
you
so
know,
the 5 years, you just divide it by 5, and it's
exactly, yeah. And now ultimately, when it gets financed, you could finance it straight line, or you could finance it on a level payment, which can change things slightly at the end. But for purposes of these projections, we just do straight line.
That's absolutely fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood exactly how the math was working.
Yeah, exactly. So we assume, I mean, it's probably conservative at this point. We assume a 3% interest rate. It's probably closer to 1% on the short end, but you know,
that's not the part that's moving the needle.
No, exactly. It's so, you know, $1 million project is $100,000 a year. Simple, 100,000, and then 30,000 in interest. And there's your 130,000. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it's a big nut to crack, and you know, we may have to relook at a few of the projects. Some of the departments that are being, you know, a little aggressive on what they want to accomplish. Maybe that's got to get spread out a little bit, but I still think it's going to be hard to come off of a number like this. It will come off some, but not a tremendous amount.
Okay.
With the projects in the parks, you know, especially with Matheson being open to the public, would some of those be possibly covered by grants? I saw a lot of things about waterfront and recreation and trails. Now, if you can get River Walk, which is a trail, and it's part of that, I think you have an angle to get some of that stuff in the park fit under the CFA grants.
Yeah, the problem with the projects that we have set up for the parks is they're not they're really very routine maintenance type projects.
I thought it was a new building. It was the
it's a replacement of an old, you know, building that's in disrepair.
Yeah, but you make it nice, and you make it, you know, increase the recreation, and you connect it to River Walk, and just think about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's just not. It's a little challenging because it's only, at the end of the day, it's a maintenance building, so it's hard to make that sound really good.
No, you make it glass, and it's introduction to new kinds of recreation. And
ADA accessible maintenance.
ADA accessible.
Yeah, there you go.
Veterans will like it.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
so,
Yeah, so
really, I've seen an awful lot of stuff with grants that.
Yeah, well, no, we'll
They're not
relook at it.
honest. You just rethink, you know, a little bit about the potential of something that also is that useful storage thing as well.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Solar
we'll
one,
try
make it a solar building, I don't know.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
So if you have any questions about anything you look at, I'm not, like I said, we're not going to run through the entire thing just in the interest of time, but if there's anything you have questions about, I know we have a few follow-up questions. I'm not going to recap them, but I have them all written down. You can trust me.
Okay.
And we'll get back to you on that, and we'll look to try to narrow this down and, sharpen the pencil a bit for sometime in June.
Great. We can circle up again soon.
Okay. Is that it?
Thanks, everybody.
You're right.
That's it.
Feel better, Mark. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brenda.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.